police tell you and your friends to leave your local park and not come back for 24 hours, how can you respond?
I'm Amity and this is Sophie. We're from Fitzroy Legal Service and we're going to explain what your rights and options are if police tell you to leave or stay away from a particular place.
That's right, because we know that police use these laws disproportionately against young people, as well as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, migrant communities, and those facing homelessness. But knowing your rights and how to respond can make a big difference.
So let's get into it. Are police allowed to ask you to leave a particular place?
Simply put, yes. Police can direct you to leave and stay away from a public place for up to 24 hours if they reasonably believe that you might hurt other people or damage property or are likely to breach the peace.
It's important to remember that you don't actually have to be doing any of those things for the police to direct you to leave. The police just need to have a reasonable reason for believing that you may. But what counts as breaching the peace?
So the law doesn't define exactly what that means, but it generally means things like a public disturbance involving the threat of violence or harm to property. It's more than simply making a lot of noise or causing a nuisance. But remember, it's about the police's reasonable belief, and they could have a very different view of a situation than you might.
Can the police direct you to leave any place?
So it can be any public place, any roads, footpaths, parks, train stations, public transport, churches, public schools, entertainment venues, or licensed premises such as bars.
What about with protests or political activity where people are gathering almost specifically to create noise and cause a disturbance? Are there any exceptions to protect our right to protest?
There are. So police can't order you to move on or stay away if you are there to protest or publicise your views about a particular issue, or if you're taking part in employment-related strike action.
Okay, so let's say you're not there to protest. Let's say you're in the park, you're hanging out with your friends, and the police ask you to leave and not come back for 24 hours. What can you do?
So the first thing to remember are your general rights when interacting with the police. Whenever the police ask you for your name and address, you can then ask the police for that officer's name, rank, and station. They must provide you with this information and make sure that you write it down and put it somewhere safe, as it could be helpful later. You can also ask them to make sure that their body-worn camera is turned on so there is video evidence of how they treat you.
That's important to keep the police accountable, especially if you think they've treated you unfairly or violently. But after getting that information, do you have to listen to their order to move on?
So if you refuse to leave or return to the area within the time that they told you to stay away, you may be issued with a fine or charged with a criminal offence.
That's probably something you want to avoid. But what about if you think they're treating you unfairly, or if they don't have a reasonable reason to ask you to leave?
So you basically have three options. Firstly, you can listen to the police and leave the area. Secondly, you could leave the area and stay away, but then lodge a complaint against the police officer later. Thirdly, you could refuse to obey the order, risk getting a fine or being charged and having to prove in court that the police officer was acting unlawfully.
What happens if you obey the order but then lodge a complaint later?
So you lodge a complaint by filing a complaint letter with the police. However, this complaint letter will then be investigated by another police department. At the end of the investigation, you will then get a letter advising you of the outcome.
If you are considering filing a complaint, or if you refuse to comply with an order and have since been charged or fined, we recommend seeking free and confidential legal advice at a community legal centre like Fitzroy Legal Service.
And that's everything that you need to know about how to respond when the police ask you to leave or stay away from a public area.
Remember your rights, stay informed, and stay safe.